Okay, Dad. Okay, it's rolling. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
You ready to go, Paw Paw?
Mhm.
All right. Howdy, audience. Welcome back to Clean Conscious Network. This is Dr. Robin Trailer sitting with my father, Ronald Franklin. How do, Paw Paw?
I do, sugar.
All right. Well, I'm doing pretty good. Well, thank you for
Okay.
coming back, Dad.
Okay.
Last time we were talking about our family history,
hmm
and you blew my mind in more ways than one, right, Daddy? So we talked about, let's see what we talked about. We talked about when you were born in Crockett, and then you went to Crest,
hmm
and which is across the creek.
hmm
And then we also learned, Daddy, that what did we learn? That you grew up in a community surrounded by love, you said, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
it's your parents, two grandmothers, your
hmm
siblings, Aunt Shug is over here, Aunt Stella rather is
Right.
over here, and yeah, I mean
But
so
but
many
ain't
family
ain't
members.
sugar getting that far away.
Okay, Aunt Shug is close.
Yeah, ain't
Okay,
sugar
Aunt
is
Shug is
close.
close.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
Ain't sugar, ain't Matt, and ain't Betsy, and Big Buddy, and
Okay,
Miss Mandy. Uh, they are, I guess, about a mile away.
okay, Dad.
hmm
So you are in the Creth community on Tom Daniels land,
Right.
right? On
Right.
the land that was originally owned and purchased by Tom Daniel. Tom Daniel is born around 1870s is what I have learned.
Okay.
And our family believes that he was not born in Texas, that he actually came to Texas
hmm
because there is a story passed down that says, he came from far away on a wagon or something. But when
Okay.
I check the census says that he is born maybe around 1870. So I'll check
Okay.
on that. But some kind of way, this black man in the Jim Crow South in the Reconstruction era, I
hmm
guess, well, maybe not in Reconstruction. So
Well,
let me start that again. So we have Tom Daniel, a black man born just post emancipation,
mhm,
and some kind of way he winds up acquiring about 50 acres of land. He
mhm,
probably purchased it
mhm.
himself. Like I doubt that it was some kind of gift,
No.
but he gets
Who
right.
was
Who in the
gonna
world is
give
gonna
it
give
to?
him that? Exactly.
Yeah.
So he purchases 50 acres of land, and that land is where he raises his family, and then
Mhm,
his children start to raise their families there. His one of his children is my great grandmother,
mhm,
Etta Daniel.
mhm,
She marries Oscar Houston Wiley,
mhm.
and they have children.
Yeah.
Before Etta married Oscar Houston Wiley, she had a son named Carl Lester Franklin, who
Mhm.
is your daddy,
My dad.
my granddaddy, Daddy Rip, and we're all raised on Tom Daniel and Mary Eliza Daniel property.
Yeah.
On that land is where we are farming and ranching and generating the revenue that would literally lift our family out of poverty. But it takes generations to do this,
Right.
okay? Like it wasn't a one and done. Like
No.
it takes
No.
generations, but it's that same land, that
Mhm,
sustains our family
mhm.
for forever. And even today, that land continues to give to our family. And so, Dad, let's talk a little bit more about let's so we started talking about your boyhood, and I asked you to talk to me about like what you're doing before you're 10 years old, and you had these beautiful memories that you describe of being on the horse with Daddy Rip, or going hunting with Uncle Carl, or being a 7 or 8 year old little lad headed out to the woods by yourself with a gun. Oh, sorry, not by yourself. Spicy or Midnight.
Spicy. Yeah.
Spicy, you had a dog. Your
Yeah.
squirrel dog would go with you into the woods alone with the gun to hunt,
Mhm,
and that was normal
mhm,
for the time. So
mhm.
you grow up kind of wanting to be a cowboy, a farmer, a
Yeah.
rancher. I mean, this is the image that you idolize coming up, right? But then, Daddy, start talking to me about your adolescence. So let's talk about like age 10 until you graduate high school, what your memories of. And there's a lot there. That's kind of a loaded question, but let me start with what I asked Uncle Charles, Uncle Sonny. Daddy, when did you first realize that you were a young black man in the Jim Crow South? You describe a very beautiful and idyllic childhood there in Crest, surrounded by all your family. But at some point, you must have woken up to the awful institution of white supremacy, to, discrimination and oppression of Black folks. You even told me a story not long ago about poll tax that was very personal. And we'll get to that. But Daddy, tell me, when did you learn, oh, I'm Black, and society sees that as a
Okay.
problem?
Okay. We went to Crockett uh, as was usual on the weekend.
Okay.
Uh, that's when the shopping was done
Okay.
most of the time. And I wanted an ice cream cone.
All right.
So we were parked near a pharmacy that had a cafeteria, and they sold ice cream. Uh, had a counter, like where the sit-ins took
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So uh, I wanted an ice cream cone. So my mother told me, go get you an ice cream cone.
Okay.
So she gave me a nickel or whatever, going inside the pharmacy. So I walked inside. They weren't busy. Uh, there was a white guy sitting to my left, and I just walked up to the counter. And the the waitress was behind the counter, and like I say, she wasn't busy, but she didn't wait on me. And finally, the white guy that was sitting there say, son, why don't you try standing over there? Just down the counter a little ways. He said, step over there. So I stepped over there, and the waitress came to see what I wanted. I told her I wanted a vanilla ice cream cone. So she served me, and I went back to the car. And got to the car. My mother say, well, what took you so long?
Okay.
And I say, well, I walked up to the counter, and the lady wouldn't serve me. And I say it was a white man sitting over there. And finally he told me, why don't you go stand over there? And when I moved over there, she served me. So that was my first inkling to know that there was a difference about something. Although, I guess I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh,
I
Dad.
still didn't
You didn't, yeah,
understand,
no.
So, and I don't remember whether Mama tried to explain to me or what, but that was my first encounter with racism.
My gosh.
Hmm.
Well, that's heartbreaking, Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
That's heartbreaking. So, let me set the scene a little bit. just like to take a step back because I want to see this scene in my head. You said that you all were parked outside, and if you're fives, it's like early to mid 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Right,
Daddy, you have
right.
described rolling around in a horse and buggy when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
Were y'all in Crockett in a horse and buggy, or you were in a
No,
car?
no.
Okay, thank God, thank
Ain't
God.
ain't
We
Millie,
okay.
ain't
Amen.
Millie
May the
had a
PV
car.
grad, the PV grad had a car,
Amen.
and you all got up to town in the car,
Right,
and
right.
you're in town. It's fun,
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, I want some ice cream. We came to town,
But you know, I wasn't so hipped on going to town. I was a country boy.
Yeah, Dad.
Sonny, Sonny was the town boy.
Yeah, Sonny's
You know,
still a city boy.
yeah,
He's still he's so high class.
my
He's so high class, that
my my
Uncle Charles.
place was on the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but still, if you're gonna be in town, you might as well get some ice
Yeah,
cream.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you do when you go
That's
to
one of the
town,
treats. One of the treats.
And
Yeah.
so your mother gives you the money to go get the ice cream, and you walk into the shop like, you just want some ice cream. You're
Mm-hmm.
standing there waiting
Mm-hmm.
for help, and the white man is sitting there, and the lady sees you. She's
Oh, she,
deliberately ignoring you. Now, here's what's absurd about that. She's not busy. You're
no, not
standing
busy,
there. So
not
she
busy.
decided she was going to train you. She decided she was going to put you in your place
That
and train
that's
you
right. That's right.
to stand in the magical Negro spot.
That's right.
That
That's right.
that magical colored spot where you
Yeah.
could actually get service. And the white man is witnessing this absurdity. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no telling what he's thinking. He might be thinking, this is some nonsense. She ought to just serve
Mm-hmm.
this boy. Here's this little old boy.
Little boy.
Little boy, he just wants some
And
ice cream,
and I think he called me son. His son. Go stand. No,
So
he
he
was
wasn't
mean.
even mean, but that day he said, you know what? He's saying, I don't know what his psychology is, but
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, he's
Mm-hmm.
kind to you in his way. And he's not making waves. He's not saying we shall overcome. He's not making wave, but his own way, he says to you, hey, son, just go stand right there and
Mm-hmm.
she'll serve you, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so magically, you go stand in the magical spot, and
Mm-hmm.
the service turns on. And
Mm-hmm.
how can I
Mm-hmm.
help you?
Yeah, yeah,
Let me get you that ice cream.
that's
And
right.
okay, so that's your first encounter. I am told that my very dear and dearly departed Uncle Carl had an incident in town when he was maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. Have you heard that story from Uncle Sonny?
No,
Okay,
no.
I'm going to get the story from Uncle Sonny instead of recounting it. It's very, very, very good, very interesting story. He got in a little trouble with some white folks. They couldn't figure out who the culprit was. It was him, and he slipped away,
Mm,
and Mama Doot covered for him
mm,
to make sure they didn't do any harm to him.
yeah.
And he wasn't wrong. It was some nonsense where I think, they wanted him to like get off the sidewalk, or they were
Oh
trying to
yeah,
train him to be
yeah.
to be subservient. It was another one of these instances where he's a young man, he's adolescent, and maybe they wanted him to get off the sidewalk. And, today Uncle Carl had time. And maybe
Mm,
he said no. Or
mm,
maybe he complied the first time, but then they got in his way again. And maybe he decided the next time, I guess I'm just going to have to bump you, since
mm,
you want to keep getting in my way. And
mm,
so it's interesting that Crockett is training the African Americans in the community
oh
to
yeah,
be submissive, or
yeah,
to be
yeah.
second class citizens. And
But
again, it's absurd.
not only Crockett. This is
This is all
throughout the
over.
South,
This is all over.
Robin.
Well,
He just grew out the top.
part of the reason I have this book elevated up home by Dr. Ruth Simmons, who's
Hmm.
born and raised in Houston County, exactly as my father was. One of the points she makes in the book is that the absurdity of that like two-tiered system is that oftentimes black and white were actually kin. They're
Hmm.
actual blood relatives. They're like literally of the same genetic makeup. But, man in man's evil way will always try to figure out how to make themselves above, the
Hmm.
next man. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just think that it's crazy. And for those of you who've never visited Houston County or like East Texas, Crockett, Texas, I will tell you first, it's beautiful country.
Hmm.
It is beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
country.
It's located in the piney wood.
In the pine behind the curtains of those piney woods.
Yeah.
And today, if you visit Houston County, Crockett, Texas, it is so diverse. Okay,
Hmm.
African
That's good.
Americans run the city, sit on city council. Of course, the schools are integrated,
That's right.
but these kids are, best friends and getting married. I mean, it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Okay, Crockett is a beautiful place today.
Hmm.
Today, but, in the Jim Crow South,
That's right.
before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, before segregation is essentially outlawed, Daddy, you're growing up in the real deal Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
And, maybe, folks didn't necessarily call you a nigga to your face. They trying to teach you, you are a nigga. You stand over
That's
there to
right.
get your
That's
service.
right. That's right.
And you didn't have any awareness of this in Crest
Oh,
in the
oh no.
community where you're raised with your family, but when you go in town, the system, the
Right.
social system makes sure that they're going to teach you your place. You
Hmm.
need to know your place and go literally go stand in your place over there. So, do you have any other memories like that, Daddy?
No,
Okay.
that was my first encounter, and I can't think of another one because I graduated from an all-black high school, uh, and my association with whites was very little.
Well,
Uh,
Dad, I honestly think it's on purpose. If my grandparents were alive today, I would ask them, did you deliberately shelter your children from social oppression? And I imagine that their answer would be yes. Why
mhm.
else would you never go to a grocery store, other than for a couple of things, or rarely go in town? You don't have many memories of growing in town. You don't have many memories of having interactions with white folks. And why else would that be except that your parents didn't want you to have to deal with that nonsense? Frankly, your father, I'm sorry, when you get of a certain age, anybody with an adolescent daughter or son understands that sometimes teenagers don't want to follow the rules.
Mhm.
Sometimes they want to buck the system.
Mhm.
And by that time, Uncle Carl is here. You got Barbara Franklin, my nanny. You got Aunt Mava. And I can imagine that if they didn't feel like following the rules today because it's silly and ridiculous, that might create a problem for your family. So if I am Carl Lester and Katie Lucille, I would not be taking y'all to town because I just wouldn't even want to be dealing with all that nonsense with y'all. I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Mhm.
But let's talk more about your school. You grew Fessa Henry was your principal,
That's a
okay?
hint.
He was fierce with physics and firearms. He took care of y'all.
Yeah.
Undergrad and master's degree from TSU. And Daddy, you grow up going to segregated schools. Now, again, I remember, like, of course, I'm in high school, middle school, high school, whatever, going through things. And it's one thing to read the history, it's
Mhm.
something completely different to
Mhm.
understand how it impacts like your flesh and blood, the ones you love the most, right? And so understanding that you and mom went to segregated schools and that maybe you had to stand in the colored section and drink from colored fountains, or that there was a poll tax when it was time to go vote. Talk to me about like poll tax, Dad.
Oh, oh, Lonnie, as I stated uh, earlier, money was tight in the African American community back in the 40s and 50s. And the poll tax was $2 or 2.50, and Daddy used to have to save, uh, a nickel or a dime here and there, in order to pay his poll tax to be able to vote.
Okay, so just to slow it down, because there are probably some younger kids and adolescents listening to this, especially if they are descended from Tom Daniel. They may not even know what a poll tax is.
Hmm.
So will you teach our children, Daddy, like in
Hmm.
your own words, right? Like, what is a poll tax?
Well, a poll tax is a fee to vote.
A fee to vote.
A fee to vote.
It's so there's a
And
barrier to entry. Today, I'm registered to vote. You're registered to vote. You taught me to vote. I haven't missed an election. I've been voting since Gore Bush. I think that was my first election when I
okay,
was 18 and eligible to vote. And so, Daddy, today when I want to go vote, I present my, well, these days you got to show ID, which
right,
is a whole nother thing. But I don't have to pay anybody to vote. I don't have to save for it. I literally walk in and I cast my ballot. But back in the day, your daddy had to save his money in order to be able to vote. And to your point, Daddy, it was like maybe $2 or more, or something like that. We can check on it, but I need to check the rate of inflation. It's not cheap, whatever it is. Like,
no, it's
it's
not
not cheap.
cheap, and it was a barrier
Yes.
to African American voting. A lot of people, families, wouldn't pay the poll tax to vote, so they didn't vote, and that's what the tax was all about. It
Yeah. It
was
was to
to
discourage you.
suppress
Yes.
the black vote.
Well, and Daddy, see, the families that refuse to pay the poll tax, like, you know, just intellectually, esoterically thinking on this thing, they weren't necessarily wrong. And a
Mhm.
lot of people feel this way today. Why bother voting? They're going to do what they want to do anyway. Nothing's
Mhm.
going to change. And that psychology, it cannot be ignored. It's not necessarily wrong. But the other side of that is if you don't vote, then absolutely nothing will change, right? You
Right.
guaranteed nothing is going to change
Right.
if you don't go register and vote.
Yeah.
It is important to register and vote. And
Yeah.
fine, maybe stuff won't turn out the way we want it. Maybe you don't get the candidate you want. Maybe you get the candidate that you want and they disappoint you. But guess what? If you do nothing, there's
Right.
no chance of you getting what you want. So you must participate in the system.
Yeah.
But back to people who decided, the poll tax is high and it's probably not even worth it because I'm not going to get what I want. So, a lot of people chose just because there was a poll tax, because there was the barrier, that took a lot of people out of the running.
That's
They just
right.
decided I'm not going to vote. But your daddy was like, nope,
That's right.
nope. I'm going to
Yeah.
put my money in the jar and I'm
He.
going to save for the poll
That's right.
tax.
That's right.
So
He
talk to me about, yeah,
he was gonna vote regardless, and
just on principle. Now, this is a
yeah,
veteran.
that's right.
Carl Lester, talk to us about his military service again. Like, this is a man who served his country. So it was the Korean War, I think, is what Uncle Sonny said. I think I'll check on this. He didn't actually see action, but he was drafted and enlisted, and I think he was in Arizona and Washington State. So he wore the uniform.
I think it was World War II.
Oh, well, we'll check
Not,
on that,
not
Daddy.
Korea. Yeah,
We'll check on that,
I
you
think that
know.
was World War II.
We will check on that. But punchline is we come from a long line of people who served in the military. Frankly, Daddy,
Oh
it's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
the reason why I keep this pen nearby. You know, this is a pen of the United States flag. This is my country, just as much as
Mm-hmm.
it is anybody
Oh
else's. Our
yeah.
hands and our blood
Oh
built
yeah.
this country. Our blood is in
Oh
the
yeah.
soil. We served, and so I will show up for every election and I will open my big mouth
Oh yeah.
and talk about
Yeah.
things that bother me as much as I want to, because I have a right to do it.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
like, you know, it ought to be given freely because we're American, but actually our family paid. We literally paid the tax.
Yeah.
We paid the tax to have something to say.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'll go on and put my little flag pin on, Daddy. Now talk to me some more about talk to me some more, Daddy, about Daddy Rip's poll tax. So he saves enough. Is Mama Dut voting too?
Oh
Or
yeah. Oh yeah. Uh,
so this is
you know,
pre-Voting
this is
Rights Act. You know,
yeah.
this is when you're a
Yeah.
boy, but before 1965 and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Mama Dut voting. The women's right to vote, I think, is 1919. Is when the law passes that women can vote. I was always under the impression, Daddy, that Black folks could not vote before the Voting Rights Act. I thought that the cards were stacked so high against us that we just could not vote.
Well,
But what you're saying is there were hurdles to clear. Some of
exactly.
us were able to clear the hurdles.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you know, the poll tax was used as a means of oppression, say in Houston County, but other states and other counties had beans in the jar. You know, you got to guess how many beans are in the jar.
Let me tell you something. I saw that at a fair, like an
Mhm,
elementary school fair, like a fall
mhm,
festival. They had that. And I remember maybe they had like Jolly Ranchers or Now Laters or something, a big old jar. And you have to go to the jar and figure out that number. And I was always dead wrong and far off of the
mhm,
actual number. Now I'm a child, you know, but Daddy, the absurdity, the
oh yeah, oh
complete,
yeah,
the complete, pardon my language, Daddy, the complete bullshittery of that
oh
jar
yeah,
with the
oh
beans
yeah,
is
oh yeah,
it's mind boggling. It really is mind boggling that somebody would try to put that task in front of my grandparents before they could vote. But that
and
happened.
today young people have the right to vote and very few barriers to keep them from voting, and they take it for granted that things are gonna stay the way they are, and they don't vote.
Daddy, you know, I'll
And
be honest.
that
That's a shame. Isn't it heartbreaking? You
I
mad
tell
about
you,
it. You mad
that's
at I know
heartbreaking.
that gets under your skin, but
That's
Dad,
heartbreaking.
you know what I will say is part of what we want to do in this forum is make it real. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
help our children understand that our right to vote is precious.
Yeah,
It is actually precious.
yeah.
People fought to vote.
They died.
People died
Yeah,
to vote.
yeah,
Some people tried to vote and were denied the vote
yeah.
because they didn't have the poll tax, or they
Or
got
they
the
couldn't
number of the
couldn't guess
beans
the
wrong,
number of the
or
beans.
maybe they missed a word in the entire constitution that they recited,
Yeah,
you know, before, like, some there was always some kind of silly hurdle. I'm
barrier.
not even going to call it intellectual because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It was absurd. It was absurd. and it was to keep Black people from having the right to vote. On that note, Daddy, though, talk to me about the time, and I don't know if you know this. Did white folks have to count the beans? Did they have to pay the poll?
No,
So
no,
white folks didn't even have to pay the poll tax, and they didn't have to count the beans. That
well,
is
they
some
might have had to
nonsense.
pay the poll tax, but they were
It probably depends on the municipality,
they
right?
were the elite. They
Right. They
they
were the
they
the party in
they
power.
had an extra 250,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
an extra 250.
Okay,
But
so my granddaddy saves for his poll tax and for his wife's poll tax, which
mhm,
I think is beautiful.
mhm.
So talk to me about what their experience might have been when they arrive at the poll on the day that they decide to vote.
Well, I never heard them talk about an incident uh, when they went to vote.
You know who I'm going to ask? Mitty May. I'm going to
Hmm.
ask Aunt
Right,
Mitty and I'm
right,
going to ask Aunt Ollie. I will
right,
bring them back with better microphones
right.
because I know they remember.
Yeah.
I know they
Uh-huh.
remember. And they went through the same nonsense.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's the poll tax to vote. And let's go back to these segregated schools. So what else do you want to say,
No,
Dad?
I was just gonna say, there was stress on election day because of the expression, sweating like it's election day. You
Oh,
know,
Dad, I never heard
you
that.
never heard of that?
I never heard that.
Sweating.
So here's a question, Daddy. Like on politics and the politics at the time. A lot of people like to say, oh, Black people, should be Republicans. Or, Lincoln was a Republican, MLK was a Republican, or what. And you're talking about elections. And I know when Daddy Rip would go to the poll, he must have been informed. I mean, he done saved his $2 and Mama Duke's $2 so that they could vote. So they go to the polls informed. Do you have any idea of their like political leanings or values? Were you ever aware of any local candidates or state candidates that they were in favor of? Like, do were they involved in any particular political infrastructure? What do you remember about the time?
Well, about the only thing I can think of is Eisenhower versus, was it Kennedy?
Dewey? Isn't that the
No,
paper that was held up?
no. Uh,
No.
uh, Eisenhower, Kennedy, I
Okay.
think it was.
Eisenhower, Kennedy.
And I think Dad and Mama were lifelong Republicans because of Lincoln
Hmm.
being Republican.
Most Black people in the
They
South at the
they
time.
were until uh, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act.
Now, like on that note, Johnson's from Texas.
Hmm.
He is Kennedy's successor because President Kennedy is assassinated
Yeah.
right as he's discussing voting rights and civil rights with MLK and civil rights leaders. And he's assassinated for a myriad of reasons. Okay.
Hmm.
But Johnson is the vice president. He ascends to the presidency, and Johnson is from Texas.
Right.
Johnson is a white man from the Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
He is everything a white man can be in
Yeah.
the Jim Crow South in the
Yeah.
United States. He
Yeah.
probably grew up privileged. He probably grew up racist. He probably threw around the word nigger like it was water. He was that kind of Southern man. That man signed the Voting Rights Act
Yeah.
and the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. God is amazing.
Oh
Like God
yeah.
is
Oh
talk
yeah.
about changing
Oh
hearts
yeah.
and minds, and I like maybe Johnson was a fair guy. Maybe his parents taught him to love all God's children equally. Like I actually don't know much about Lyndon B. Johnson and Lady Bird Johnson, but I know any person who grows up in Texas grows up racist. Period. Period. That's black and white. If you're white, you're taught that white is better. If you're black, society teaches you that white is better, that light is right. And so Johnson's that man, he's the president, but he still knows this nonsense is wrong.
Right.
It's wrong, to have, like the separation of the races and segregation and unequal rights and unequal education and folks can't, but it's stupid. It's just plain old dumb. So Mama
And
Doot and Daddy
and
Rip are Republicans, and I don't know, was he a Democrat? He's a, what was he? Was he,
Johnson,
yeah, what is his
Johnson,
party? He's
Democrat.
a Democrat. Straight up Dixiecrat.
Democrat.
He is a Democrat, okay? And my grandparents are Republicans. So talk to me about the election and what do you remember?
Well,
Kennedy v.
there
whoever.
was concern about Kennedy being Catholic, and
Oh Lord.
Eisenhower was a general in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and he was highly respected and by some. You know, some said that he sent more men to their death than than
Mm-hmm.
any other man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
he was a general, military
Mm-hmm.
man,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
So you have youth
respected,
versus experience,
and
I'm
you got
imagining.
daddy
Yeah.
served in the military.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
uh,
So dad
and
my
I
uh-huh.
don't know, but I think he voted for Eisenhower.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
It wouldn't
and
surprise me. I mean, the
and
thing is, Daddy Rip, Lincoln's a Republican, and we're talking about the 1950s, 90 years after emancipation. Black folks are emancipated, and certainly we're doing better than the formerly enslaved and their children, and their children. Like there's a little bit of progress, but at the end of the day, the Republican Party is still the party of Lincoln, and that racism abounds all around you. Like if you don't know who to vote for and you're black in the South, the Democrats definitely are not thinking about you if you're black in the South at the time.
that's right.
Most of the Dixiecrats were unabashedly segregationist,
Yeah,
racist,
racist. Yeah,
foaming at
yeah,
the mouth,
yeah.
white robe wearing
And
racist.
after President Johnson signed those two acts,
Uh huh.
they left the Democratic
Show did.
Party and went to the Republican Party.
Show did.
Yeah.
It's only funny because the Republican Party is the party of Lincoln. And the
Uh-huh.
Dixiecrats fled to
Yeah.
the party of Lincoln. They could have formed
But
their own
see,
party, but I guess they just decided,
that what Johnson did was a cardinal sin in the
oh
South.
yeah, yeah, no, you can't let the oppressed think that they're
No,
equal to the oppressors.
and
That is
although
unforgivable, I would imagine.
Johnson did what he did, uh, one of the scenes I've seen uh, in the movie or whatever, uh, Martin uh, Martin Luther King went to him. He had already signed one of the acts. I don't remember which one he signed first, the Voting Rights Act or the Civil Rights Act. But he had signed one, and Martin went to him uh, to sign up, and he told him, "Make me do it."
He's a
And Martin
Dixiecrat.
had to go back to the streets.
He's a Dixiecrat.
He had to go back to the
Right.
streets and uh, present enough turmoil
Well, right,
to the country
right,
to make the country see
right,
that this also needed to be
right.
done.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because that same kind of political theater exists today. Like, presidents and senators and US representatives, they will do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You will elect
Mostly
them,
labor.
you will elect them
Mm-hmm.
and they will do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes passion.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to demonstrate the absurdity of society in order to change the hearts and minds of elected officials. And maybe, look, I would like to think the best of President Johnson. Maybe he had a soft heart, maybe God changed his heart, whatever. But also, this man is a professional politician
Mm-hmm.
and he could see the direction that history was moving in. He was not stupid. It was a
Mm-hmm.
calculated move, and he understood he could not, he could not deny the right to vote. He could not deny what was it, the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. You could not deny civil rights to black folks. It was just a dumb political move when society's hearts and minds had already been changed toward civil rights. And that so what President Johnson says to Dr. Martin Luther King is, look, man, you want some change, show me why. Show me why it matters, because I'm only hearing from you, Dr. King. Who's hurt? I don't see anybody hurt, Dr. King. So why do you want to change it? So Dr. King had to show the country. Dr. King held up a mirror and showed us how ugly we were.
I don't know if that brought on Bloody Sunday or what.
Well, I'm not sure if that conversation did, but I heard that was the catalyst for a lot of the demonstration. It was calculated and it was planned. They knew, Dr. King knew that if the public saw fire hoses and dogs turned on children,
Exactly.
turned on children, that the whole world would go, what in the hell are they doing in the United States to black folks, to children? That people in the North and all over would go, whoa, this is really bad. It's wrong,
They thought
It was a genius strategy. And some people say it was mean, but it worked. It was effective and it worked. You can critique all day long the rightness of using children for political demonstration, but see, that was the point. The children are the future, and the children are literally being denied access to,
we
well, go on, talk about
we
it.
need something dramatic for the evening news.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's have a march.
Yeah, Dad.
And let Bull Connor
Yeah. Right. Let's just see what
come in
happens.
and crack some heads. And
Let's see what
we'll
happens.
send that to the evening news.
Dr. King, he was ready. He and his team, he and SCLC, the whole all of the thought leaders of the civil rights movement were genius. And you're growing up in this time. So, Dad, you're born in 49. Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, those are like mid 60s. I'm thinking 1965. So those things are passing. You're 16 years old, growing up during that hot time. So tell me, Dad, what are your recollections of, Dr. King, Malcolm X, the civil rights movement? Was our family like politically active at the time, or were we? I didn't think so. I mean, it was scary. You're in the backwoods, Houston County, Texas. There were lynchings. There had already been a massacre a few decades before that this world has yet to wake up to in Slocum. So, we weren't just trained. Our people were smart. We wanted to live. I mean, really, somebody's got to protest. Somebody's got to live. And so we were not marching on the front lines. We may have, outsmarted some dummies, in our own way from time to time. But talk to me what it's like for you, Daddy, growing up in this time, in the civil rights movement. seeing the evening news? What are you hearing?
Well, you know, I grew up in a very conservative family, and you know, Big Mama was saying, "Why don't the protesters go home and mind their own business?" Uh, you know, she was so hip to uh, segregation and the the bad treatment that she was content to let it be, you know.
Well, Dad,
And
that
yeah,
actually breaks my heart because you're right. See, we were taught to hate ourselves.
hmm
We were taught to hate
hmm
ourselves, and
hmm
there is a psychology that happens to Black people, not just in the South, but definitely in the South,
hmm
where you look at another Black person who's bucking the system and you say that person is crazy. And we're not saying person, they crazy.
yeah,
They need
yeah,
to stop. They
yeah,
over there starting, oh my God,
yeah, yeah,
and it's in you to submit because they taught you since you
hmm
were a child. You go stand
and
over there.
as you were saying earlier about you know, family members
Yeah,
being black and white
yeah,
in the same community.
right.
You know, some of Big Mama's white family would come visit her every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, so we're talking about Augusta.
mhm.
Augusta eventually marries a man named Henderson, but she was born Augusta Stewart. Is that
Now
Adeline's?
you gonna have to get Sonny.
Well, yeah, I
He
think he
he
said that.
he.
Augusta Stewart probably should have been Hicks, but she's born Augusta. And talk to me about now. This is Mama Dut's mother.
Yeah,
This is your mother's mother,
yeah,
my great grandmother. We
yeah.
called her Big Mama. Like I said, there was nothing big about Big Mama. I remember her being a smaller woman. What
Yeah.
describe her to me?
Well, you know, in the African American community, Big Mama is just
Super
the
Mother
mother,
Supreme, the mother
mother,
of the mother,
the mother of the
the mother
mother.
of the
You
mother
know,
is Big Mama.
she's just Big Mama. You know,
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with
Not
size.
size.
No,
I
yeah,
know, but my small brain, my little brain growing up calling her Big Mama, it means like mother of the mother or mother of the
hmm
grandmother, like mother supreme, mother superior up here. But there's also this like Mamie vision, So I grow up with images of like Gone with the Wind. What's the black actress's name? She's the first black actress to get an Oscar. And
I know.
this Mamie image is kind of Aunt Jemima, kind of Big Mama image. And oftentimes those women were very full figured,
Right,
round, beautiful, chubby cheek
right.
faces, brown skin. And so I think of those women and in my head, it like my upbringing tells me a big mama should look like that. Well, my big mama was half white and small frame. As was what I recall.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
recall about Big
well,
Mama?
you know, uh, she was full figured for many years, but as she got older, she slimmed down. She
Okay.
just lost weight,
So
you
when
know.
I'm born, she's tiny. I mean, really, I
Yeah,
think she
yeah,
passed away when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I didn't know her long, but I do remember her, and
yeah,
she was small. I
yeah.
remember her being in her chair. And Dad, we stay in her house today.
hmm
Up home. When we go up home, we stay in Big Mama's trailer,
That's right. That's
and
right.
her chair was in there even when you moved in.
hmm
And like we can feel her, like I can't be up home without thinking of all of them, because they're still with us. Like the
Yeah,
homes that they roamed in, the church that they went to, the streets that they walked
yeah,
are it's they're there, and so like I never saw a ghost. I don't mean like feel their presence, but I mean, you know they're with me in my heart every time I look in the mirror, every time I think of a poem, and certainly when I'm there, they are with me. Now my
well,
big mama was not. What were you going to say there, Dad?
well, I was going to say that, Big Mama and Grandma Etta were very religious women.
Yes.
Uh, Around 10 o'clock in the morning, after they had finished their morning chores, washing breakfast dishes or whatever they needed to do, you'd see uh, either one of them on the porch with their Bible.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I remember being at Bible study. I was sitting close to Big Mama, and she knew all of the answers. The pastor would ask a question, and
Wow.
Big Mama would answer it more likely than not
Wow.
under her breath, so and so and so. And
Wow.
they were they were true women of God, and
Wow.
when I pray that you and Rosalind and my grandkids will be strong Christians
Well, there's still hope.
on the order of
There's
Big
still hope.
Mama and Augusta
There's
and
still
Ella
hope, Daddy.
and
Pray for me.
and Ella.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day, Dad. I don't know. 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 Okay, but Dad, so we started out. I just really want to go down this Big Mama rabbit hole, but we started out saying that so white folks in town were oftentimes related to folks of color. Big Mama's father is a Craddock. The Craddocks are in town. They're a white family in town. Sometimes they would even secretly come by and visit her.
Yeah.
And the absurdity of that
Oh,
she could be a whole sister or cousin, in the dirt roads and in like in the solace of Creth and in our little Tadmore community. But I don't know if they ever acknowledged her in town, in public. Like it's absurd. It's completely
yeah,
absurd.
I don't know either.
Okay, but she is conservative and she sees all the marching and stuff on TV and she's like, why don't they just quit?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish I could ask her, Mama, why did you think that? But I know
Well,
why. She probably didn't want anybody to get hurt. She knew if that happened in
mhm,
Houston County, there'd be a lot of dead black folks.
yeah,
Dead,
yeah,
not injured, dead.
yeah,
Dead,
yeah,
and nobody would pay the bill, like there would be
right,
no repercussions
right.
or recourse for that. So on some level, fear keeps you from protesting,
Exactly, exactly.
but not because you just feel like folks shouldn't be rowdy. It's like, dang, I don't want them to die. I don't want them to die, so I wish everybody would just go home. Fine, we're oppressed, but who cares? We grow our own food. We're going to college now. Why do we have to march
Yeah,
for everything
yeah,
else?
yeah,
That's probably what
yeah,
she's thinking. Huh. Okay.
yeah.
So
Very conservative.
what about Mama Etta or Daddy Rip Mama Dud? Like what do you
Well,
remember?
I don't remember discussing the civil rights movement with them uh,
It's so
very much,
interesting because
but
that's literally your time. Brown versus Board is 1954.
54,
Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act around
60,
1965. These are
64,
your formative years, but you are
64, and
under the
65.
protection of crack. You're in
Hmm.
the crack bubble.
Hmm.
So you may have possibly missed a lot of that.
Well,
I don't, I mean, I know you saw some of it, but it's not like you were out
well,
marching in the
it was
streets.
on evening TV, but
Uh-huh.
I was working.
Wait a minute. You
from the
were a boy.
time
What?
from
What? Wait a minute. What?
from
Working?
I told you last time that I couldn't wait to get a cotton sack. They fixed me a crocker sack.
Dad, I'm sorry.
And
Oh,
they
Dad.
use burlap. They use burlap to make a cotton sack. And I don't know what they used to make a croaker sack, but it wasn't the same. But you had to grow into a burlap cotton sack.
Oh, Dad.
You
Oh,
started
no.
off
Yes.
with a little croaker sack,
Yes, Dad.
and so
You were working. You weren't always in the news. And you know what, Daddy? We're like that today. A lot of folks are not paying attention to politics. They could not care. They're at work. They're at work. They minding their business. They're trying to treat their neighbor right. They're just living their lives. And politics is happening over there. I heard today we actually got a Speaker of the House elected. A lot of people don't know that. Because who cares? They going to work. Ain't nothing changed. Not having a speaker. Not having a speaker did not affect a lot of people. A lot of people didn't even notice. They're not aware.
Say he's very conservative, very Christian, and they say that his Christianity is real, but his philosophies are far right.
Oh, Lord.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, yeah.
For the record, we are not Republican. Okay. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it at that. All right. We're not with that.
The fear of death was so ingrained in my parents.
Yeah, Dad.
That Daddy Rip was gone when President Obama got elected.
So let's talk about that. Obama is 08. See, I remember crying about Daddy Rip when I was in medical school. I think I was no, Obama's 08. Yeah, Daddy Rip. See, I think I was in my third year of medical school. So I start medical school in 01. Third year is like 03, 04. He passes away. I feel like I'm on my psychiatry rotation or something. I did not do well in my psychiatry rotation, but my granddad was dying, and just a couple of years, he just barely misses Obama. Barely misses Obama.
I just wish,
man,
that he could have seen a black man ascend to the presidency.
But Mama Dut did.
I think Mama Dut did.
She did,
but
Daddy.
You know what she said?
Oh, what did she say?
They're
gonna kill him. I remember her saying that. Daddy, I remember thinking Obama could not win. Not that he wasn't competent, talented, whatever. I just thought that the white supremacy infrastructure would not allow for a black man to be president. And Mama Dut had already seen a lot of promising dead black leaders who stood up for civil rights. And Obama is our modern day version of that. Like a lot of people had pictures of MLK in their homes. I got a statue of Obama in my house. He's a big deal. So yeah, Dad, so from the arc, from the 50s into the 2000s is well, it's incredible. And you're coming up in that time. Mama Dut, we know, voted for Obama. And we know that, there were challenges with her voting. What did they want from her? A driver license? My grandma was like 90 something years old. They needed a driver license. She hadn't driven in years.
About 10 years. about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it was harder for her to register. That's why, going back to the poll tax
Mm-hmm.
issue, a lot of people say, well, you got to have a license to get drugs, no big deal. Well, my 90-year-old grandma who had to pay a poll tax and who fought, to be able to vote,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly in her elderly years, had
Not driving
had
anymore.
to clear another hurdle. It was reminiscent of the time when she had to pay the poll tax, and it's annoying. It's annoying as hell, to work so hard to get this right, to be able to go and register to vote, and then discover, 50 years later, oh,
Well,
we back to challenges
you see,
again,
the Republicans made an issue out of
out of a non-issue,
Democrat, a
out of a
non-issue.
non-issue.
Democrats illegally voting,
Yeah, it's a
and
non-issue.
they
There's not a
they
lot of voter
called
fraud out here. It's a
changes to
non-issue.
the
It's a non-issue, and really, it's a wedge issue. It's just
rules.
something to get people excited about, so that folks who won't vote go vote.
Well,
That's the trick.
in
They
the
got to get you
past,
mad so that you go vote.
you could take a light bill or a
Yeah,
gas bill,
right.
something,
Right.
whichever
Something that you
address.
have that
Mm,
comes to you
yeah,
regularly,
yeah,
easy.
yeah.
You are who you say you are, fine. What they call her, Miss Seal, Miss Rip, Miss
Hmm.
Franklin. We know you've been voting in Houston County literally your whole life. You've been a Houston County resident.
But
Come on over here and vote. But
but
suddenly she
but
couldn't vote without a driver license,
yeah,
and like in her 90s, which is
yeah,
stupid. But
yeah.
okay, but back, so the family is fairly conservative at the time when you're growing up,
Hmm.
and you are noticing things change, but you working, you are
Right.
picking cotton. What other kind of work are you doing, Daddy?
Picking peas, cotton, chopping cotton, uh, hoeing peas, uh, hauling hay, hauling pulpwood,
Okay.
and maybe that's about it.
Daddy,
But
will you tell the clean conscious listeners what kind of work I was doing when I was when I was that age? What was Where did I go to work, Dad?
well, I guess you went to the to take piano lessons. Huh?
I did. I did. The minister of music at the church taught me to play the piano. I don't remember anything, but she did. But that wasn't work, Dad. What was my job? Was I picking peas, picking cotton, chopping pulpwood?
No,
Was I
no,
no? Was I
no.
baling hay?
Oh, but you worked at Sears.
I I did work at Sears
You
for a
worked
hot
at
second.
Sears and
I worked at Foley's, but that's when I
Foley.
got to
Yeah,
college. I know I wanted some money and at the break, so I went and worked at Foley's. I was terrible at that
yeah,
job.
yeah.
But that matter of fact, Foley's went out of business not long after they hired me. It's a true story. It's true.
Well,
So, Dad, you did all that work when you were young. I don't think I'm not sure if I knew that you did some like I knew you did some farming, but I didn't know, Dad, that you were like doing all of that. This is
oh,
my
baby,
first time hearing
oh,
about all
baby.
of this. So, talk to me about like, are you doing all of that while you're in school, like September to May? Are you like chopping and picking and hoeing and all like,
Well,
what were you doing?
uh,
When were you doing these things? And how
well, no,
consistent was the work?
when I can't remember exactly when, but I know for a period there after school. Well, school for the black school started late in
Okay.
September
Okay.
because Mr. Gilmore had to get his crops his crops in.
Who's
The
Miss? Wait a minute. Who
the
is Miss?
way
Wait a minute. Who's Mr. Gilmore? Who is this?
well, that's just generic.
Oh, see, I heard no, but Mitty May and Ollie Mae, they told me about
Mr. Merriweather.
yeah,
Mayweather.
Mayweather. Is it Merriweather?
I think it's Merriweather.
Oh,
But
Dad.
everybody called
Mayweather.
Gus Mayweather.
Oh, have mercy. Okay, so Mayweather is. See, if I were looking for him, I would. I would have missed him. I would have. I would have missed him. It is Merriweather,
Oh,
not Mayweather. But we said Mayweather. Daddy, I didn't know we were sharecroppers. I didn't know that about us.
well, I didn't either, because, uh, like you say, we had our own land. Uh, so I didn't know we were sharecroppers.
Okay.
Uh,
So your school started later because black labor was needed to harvest the the goods and
Crops.
crops out of the ground. And so
Yeah,
white kids started school earlier,
that's right.
but black
That's
kids started a little bit later
right.
because those black kids were needed in the fields
That's
to
right.
harvest the
That's
crops. So talk to me about like your planting season and your harvest season and where does school fall in with all this work?
Well, when we got started school in late September, as I can remember, uh, we had a full school year, although sometimes as students we would take a day out of school to go to work
Okay.
and make some money
Okay.
uh, I remember that, but uh, our school year was a regular school year, and when we got our books, there were 7 or 8 names written in the book. So our information was
Seven
seven,
or
eight,
eight years
10
old, 10
years
years old.
old.
So that
Um,
is one of the unfortunate consequences of the so-called separate but equal segregation education system of the time. See, you and Mama had these hand-me-down books from the white schools.
from the white
They
school.
would get the new books, and when they
Mhm.
were done with them, and when they were outdated, and they when they were ready to buy
About
some new
10
ones,
years old
10 years old, then they would pass them down to y'all.
to the black school. But baby, we had teachers.
Yeah.
We had black teachers that kept us up on what was going on. And one year, I don't know, the state, whoever, came in to do the standardized test.
Okay.
And although we were getting the 8 and 10-year-old information,
Okay.
we scored higher than the white school on the standardized test.
High five,
I,
Dad.
you better know it. You better know it. And not only that,
Look at
baby,
what God will do.
but you get that kind of education, and then uh, after integration, you have to compete with these kids
Yeah,
who are
Dad.
10 years
Actually,
ahead of
let
you,
me tell you something. I have
that are
friends.
supposed to be.
I
Yeah.
have friends exploring homeschool for their children because they know some of the schools that our kids are in, they just do not care about our kids.
Mhm.
And it's not even necessarily a whole black white thing. Teachers are overworked, underpaid. There's 20 to 30 students in a classroom sometimes. Teachers just got to get through the thing. Will you talk to me about and by the way, I am not celebrating segregation, okay? But diamonds came out of that pressure. One
Oh yeah.
diamond's name is Dr. Ruth Simmons. Another diamond's my dad and my mom and my aunts, who went to college just a couple of generations removed from the institution of slavery. So, will you talk to me about the benefits of your school system? Number one, I'm told that all the grades are in one schoolhouse.
One.
Approximately how many students do you believe are in that one schoolhouse?
Like, I don't know. I guess 100, 150.
So from kindergarten through maybe
Well,
seniors
no,
in
not
high school. So
kindergarten.
talk, who's
First
in?
grade.
So from first
One,
grade
one through
through
12.
senior through 12. So 1,250. So you're talking about say 12, 13 kids per class grade if it's equaled out, you know. Okay. I am told that you graduated. Were you salutatorian? You're salutatorian. So of your high school, education matters. Your teachers know you. They know your mama. They know your daddy. Matter of fact, they are your auntie. They are your teachers are your cousins, your auntie. You know, forget know your mom and dad. They're literally your parents' siblings. They care. They love you. They love you. And they are pouring the best of themselves into you. Now, I'm not saying that school teachers today don't love their kids. Actually, I know they do. I know they do. But also, as a physician, I understand the challenge of having too many patients to care for. You can't even get your arms around, you know, 30, 40 patients a day. You do your best. You give your all to each in the moment, but at the end of the day, you got to move on and help the next and move on. So you all have a more intimate school, smaller class sizes, teachers who care. You're at public school. Did y'all have to pay anything to go to school or what? So, okay. So what about the incidentals for school? Like, how did you get that? Like, you were talking about a Letterman's jacket and all. Like, how did
Well,
y'all?
as far as I know, the school furnished it.
Okay.
When
Okay.
you said you had to buy a range jacket, I was very surprised because
Oh no,
I
man.
thought the school purchased that.
Listen here,
But I
if
never
I
heard
didn't buy the
mom and
jacket, the
daddy.
jacket wasn't gonna be had. And here's another thing. I remember paying for my Letterman jacket in high school. You know, nobody donated that to me. We bought that.
I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
but even Dad, what about like your teachers are people who love you, pour
But
into you,
baby,
and they
let me
make
let
y'all
me tell you.
brilliant. Yeah.
We didn't have a gymnasium. We played basketball on a dirt basketball court. 1960, the boys basketball team goes to state.
What? Y'all went to state and you had a
This is
dirt court?
1960. Uh,
So
I didn't
who's in
graduate to
that class?
67.
Wait a minute, you're 67. Who do you know in that basketball
Oh,
team?
Bobby Calhoun, Alfred Scott,
I
Emmanuel
know these
Jones.
names. Wait, Alfred Scott, is he the one who sang?
He was a
God
singer.
rest that.
He was a singer.
Yeah.
Uh,
Bobby Calhoun, I know that
Bobby
name.
Calhoun, Alfred Scott, Emmanuel Jones, Jordan Daniels,
Wow.
Eva Jean's brother. And who was the fifth? Oh, must have been Bo Mitchell, Rayford's brother.
Wow. My godfather's brother. So wait a minute, Dad. Who was the basketball coach?
Professor Henry.
Professor Henry. Oh my God. Professor Henry was a bad man. He was a bad man. Oh, Dad. That is a great story.
And we got that got us a gymnasium.
Wow.
After
Wow,
proving
Dad.
ourselves on a dirt court.
You literally
That
had,
got
wait a
us
minute.
a
So
gymnasium.
other people were freely given a gymnasium. It came with the school.
Oh,
It was
baby,
built into the
baby,
architecture of the
not
school.
only that,
Okay.
they had glass backboard. You know, when we were playing basketball and would visit other black schools and black gymnasiums, they didn't have glass backboard. That
Wow.
was for the pros.
Wow.
You know, the white school had glass backboards back in the 60s, you know.
Wow.
And we didn't even have a gymnasium.
Wow. That makes you proud, doesn't it,
Oh,
Dad?
I tell you,
That makes you
sometimes
proud. Well, because you know that y'all made something out of
mm-hmm,
nothing.
mm-hmm.
You made something big
Maybe
out of a whole lot of
all
nothing.
we need is a level playing field. That's all we need. And that's why whites work so hard to keep us at a disadvantage. Because if the playing field was level, we're going to excel.
Well, Dad, it's so interesting you say that. I heard a man recently say that one of the major, I mean, there's so many problems with oppression,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the major problems of oppression is the loss of opportunity. See, it's not just the denial of the loan. It's not just the denial of access to the school. It's not just, denial of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what could you have done if you
Exactly.
had the
Exactly.
opportunity?
Exactly.
What could have been built? What could
Mm-hmm.
have been grown? What good could have happened for society? Like, not just black folks, but blacks and whites together, like everybody working together. See,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm the consequence of that question. Now, things were not like all the way equal, by like for me in Sugarland growing up, but it's a heck of a lot better for me than better, I say in quotations, like, I got to go to the same school, sit at the same table,
Mm-hmm.
rub
Mm-hmm.
elbows with, sit in
Mm-hmm.
the same classrooms,
Mm-hmm.
hear the same lesson
Yeah.
as my peers of different races. And
Yeah.
I'm blessed that I grew up in a melting pot. I grew up around everybody from everywhere, was taught to love everybody from everywhere. You and
Mm-hmm.
mama taught me to love my neighbor as myself. Okay? This is what we doing right here. Okay? And y'all taught me that. You taught me to love my haters, to
Mm-hmm.
love my
Right.
enemies, which
Right.
is hard to do.
Right.
But there's value in that philosophy as a spiritual code, but just also as a moral code. Even if you're not a spiritual person, love heals, hate
Mm-hmm.
kills.
Amen.
So Dad, the thing is though, the opportunity lost robs society of betterment. Like, not just us, but the whole world is robbed of the brilliance that can come, out of the African American community because of
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity loss.
Mm-hmm.
But like I was saying, diamonds came out of all that pressure. And so you all made something out of nothing. And back to I was saying about segregated schools, these segregated public schools. Segregation is not good. I don't mean to suggest that segregation is good in any way, but there were benefits for you
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
small town rural East
Yeah.
Texas because your teachers loved you, the community
Yeah.
poured into y'all, you had smaller classrooms, and it was just it was a good education system for y'all. If y'all had had the same books, if y'all had had a similar gym, you would have been unstoppable.
Oh
Period.
yeah. Oh
Period.
yeah. Oh
Okay. So, Dad, I think it's a good place to stop for today.
yeah. Okay. All right.
Thanks so much for coming up,
Oh
Paw
yeah,
Paw.
baby. Oh yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
There's so much more to
The
say.
pleasure is all mine. The pleasure
Shoot,
is
that
all
better
mine.
have recorded. So we got, what does that say? An hour and 19 minutes, Dad.
Oh, really?
Awesome.